Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this afternoon's Skills-Share Session on preparedness and navigating the unexpected. We've got about a minute or so to go, so if we can just sit tight and let the other people who are just connecting join us, and we'll kick off then nice and promptly at 2 o'clock. Okay, good afternoon once again, everybody. My name is Gordon Angus. I'm the Executive Director of the South African Engineers and Founders Association. I just want to check from a tech side. Brad, can you connect? I think I've enabled everything and made you a presenter and everything else.
Yeah, good morning. Good afternoon, Gordon. How you doing, bro?
Fine, thanks, and you?
Yeah, it's all good. And I think Jared as well, if Jared can just test to make sure he's able to also be part of this discussion, then we're all good to go. You there, Jared? I'll just check in with Jared quick.
Folks, while we're waiting just to connect with Jared, just to let you know, on these webinars, we schedule them slightly differently. So I haven't allowed all of the functionality that one would normally get on a Teams platform. But of course, there is the chat that you can post your questions on. And I will then enable the microphone for everybody so that you can also ask questions verbally. You give me a second. But for the time being, if you don't mind just muting your mic, or just keeping your mics on mute, just so that there's minimal interference.
Hey, Gordon. So we're just waiting for Jared to rejoin. He says he's still showing up as an attendee and not a presenter.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
I've got him showing on my side as a presenter.
Yeah, me too. So just if you don't mind, just give him a few minutes.
Sure.
But we don't want to keep the guys waiting too long. And perhaps we can even jump into the presentation so far. But I think if everyone can just give maybe Jared 2 more minutes.
Yeah, sure, no problem at all. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, Gordon, I think we're good to go. Jared will step in a few minutes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks very much. Yeah, I'll see that he's joined again. Okay, perfect. Thanks very much. Then welcome everybody. Sorry for the slight hiccup there. Welcome to this afternoon's skills share session on preparedness and navigating the unexpected. If I may, just by way of introduction, just introduce and welcome our host for this afternoon session, Mr. Brad Wattridge. Brad is a communications strategist with over 27 years of experience, published co-author and thought leader on LinkedIn. He specializes in driving business growth through impactful strategies, and we're very glad to have him once again hosting this afternoon session with the members. Joining Brad today is Mr. Jared Shippel, an expert in collaborative leadership, cross-industry expertise, and learning and development. He specializes in executive business and multi-generational coaching. And together, Brad and Jared will lead us through an engaging and valuable skill sharing session. Please join me in welcoming both Brad and Jared to the platform. Thanks very much, Brad.
Thank you so much, Gordon. It's really, really great to be back, guys. And as usual, this is quite an informal setting. We are going to be having a podcast time type discussion between Jared and myself. And really what we're going to be doing is talking around our preparedness as small business owners. So it is a difficult thing as being an SMME, and Jared, I'm sure you would feel completely the same. Being prepared for everything is kind of not possible. So what we need to do is make sure we have the right policies in place so that if something unexpected happens, we can be maybe proactive rather than reactive. Jared, you with me, bud? Okay, it looks like we've lost Jared a bit. I have shared screen and we can shoot straight into the presentation. Everybody should be able to see it quite clearly. Just thumbs up if you guys can see the presentation. If you can't, just pop in the chat section and our tech guys will be able to sort you guys out. So yeah, I think the big thing is to talk around, what are the key things when we look at preparedness? And what I kind of really enjoyed about Jared and what Jared actually does is Jared specializes in coming into corporates and SMME situations and really ensuring that they remain as prepared as possible. So what you guys can do for me is if you have any comments or questions, please pop it into the chat section. We will go through it and keep an eye on it and ask any questions that you possibly have, answer any of them. And what you can also do is just be reactive, use the reactive tools. If you like something, let us know. If you're happy about something, I don't think it's got a sad or unhappy or a boo tool, but we're not in the US, so we might not need that today. So yeah, I think while we wait for Jared to unmute and join us, I don't know if Jared is there yet. And Jared, if you can hear me, you can just jump in at any time, but I don't want to keep the guys waiting. Everyone's given up their hour with us. I'm going to kind of jump straight into it. So the first thing that Jared and I wanted to talk around was understanding the risks and vulnerabilities. And I think a big thing for me, and you'll see when Jared joins us eventually, and I'm sure Nicole and Gordon are working on getting him back in here, is there's three key things in understanding risks and vulnerabilities. First is identifying threats. Then the next is assessing weaknesses and prioritizing risks. So as a small business owner, we are going to have a lot of different things that are going to come our way. We have seen in the last 2 months huge disruption globally, and it does affect us. Even if we have a small business in Benoni, let's say, operating out of Benoni, a 3-man team or a 5-man team, or even if we have a much bigger business, what happens out there does affect us as business owners and our businesses in some way or the other. So if we identify the threats, if we're very clear on what is actually a threat to our business, so this is a bit of a pet hate for me. So what we tend to do is we tend to see everything around us as a threat, and we tend to be hypersensitive to any sort of news that comes, either if it's coming out of the US or if it's coming out of our government. We see it as a risk to our business. But what we really actually need to do is sit down and say, is this really a threat to our business? And if it is a threat to our business, then we can then pinpoint and actually isolate that threat and deal with it. But if you're a person who tends to, and you're a business owner as well, and you tend to rely on social media and you're going through social media quite a bit, you're going to feel threatened quite regularly, and everything is going to affect your mindset. And the biggest thing you need to do is kind of protect your mindset. So what we would do is once we've identified the threats, we kind of assess the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities within our business according to that threat. So say, for example, the government announces a VAT increase. It's a good example. Now, some of us, it could be a threat to our business. And well, for all of us, it's going to affect us kind of negatively. But is it really going to impact the day-to-day operations of your business? Or is it something that you can circumnavigate with minimum ease? But if it is a big threat, you have a look at the weaknesses in your business that's being affected by that threat, and that is where you step in. And that's where you solve the problem. So it's not actually the threat that you kind of work with. It's the weakness in your business that's being affected by that threat. The other thing is to prioritize risks. That for me is absolutely vital because, again, a lot of businesses we work with, both Jared and myself, a lot of the businesses we work with tend to see kind of things as risks when they're actually not really risks. So if you guys want to do and you want to make this a little bit more interactive and engaging, because we kind of are missing Jared at the moment, you guys can just pop into the chat section, and Nicole, if you can keep an eye on that for me, and we can then just address any sort of questions or comments around potential risks that you have in your business, and is it actually a risk or is it not a risk? So once we understand risks and vulnerabilities, where our weaknesses are, what are actual threats to our businesses, and how do we circumnavigate risks specific to our business, the key thing here is to do quite a bit of research. And this, again, is why I enjoy Jared so much. Jared does an immense amount of research when he comes into your business. And what he does is he analyzes not only your business, but he analyzes the industry. So he has a look and says to the business owner, okay, yeah, hey, how's it, man? You're joining us.
It's bizarre. Sorry, I was there the whole time, but I couldn't say anything. I'm sorry, everyone.
No, it's okay, dude. You're hearing me rattle off. But this is a big passion for us.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. And you know what it's like for me. I love to talk. So I'm so sorry about that.
No, it's all good, all good. Well, we have headed into your first slide. I've kind of taken over there, but I'm sure you agreed with everything that we spoke around, in terms of assessing your weaknesses, identifying your threats, and prioritizing your risks. Is there anything else you want to kind of highlight there?
Most people here have gone through a strategy session, and literally this is a core part of your strategy. It's almost like a SWOT analysis in essence. Understanding where you can make a change and where you might need to make a change in the future, given all the different risks that and bizarre things that can just pop out of the blue. But I think if we can move ahead, then we can really give a lot more meat into what everyone's expecting.
Yeah, so Jared, just before we carry on with the presentation, let's just take a step back and what you actually do. And I know Gordon's done a really great intro for you, but what you do as part of your business. And I have alluded to the fact that you do come in and look at risk. You do assess risk. You also assess potential vulnerabilities in a small business. Off the bat, being really forward and rude, your business is super affordable for an SMME. Can an SMME afford someone like you to come in and support them in this journey?
Absolutely. We believe in working together with SMMEs, and we are one ourselves. So it's that's really our market. So you're not going to get corporate rates. We work with you. We work according to your budgets. We work according to your schedules as well. We know how difficult that is for SMMEs. And in some cases, I'm not sure how many people you have in your businesses. Some cases it's 1 or 2. Sometimes it's 10, maybe 20. But businesses need to be as agile as possible, and that comes in terms of the services that you procure as well.
Okay, perfect, man. So we've spoken about understanding the risks and vulnerabilities as the kind of starting point when we having a look at being prepared as a business. The next thing we want to look at is around building resilience kind of through a framework. Can you take us through this?
Sure. So really, it sounds a lot more complicated than it really is, but in order to preempt any kind of problems, challenges that may stem from whatever, it could be personal, it could be business related, it could be economic, pretty much like what we're experiencing in South Africa with Big Brother America watching. there always needs to be some form of clear communication within your organization, how you communicate it to your employees, to your teammates, whoever that may be, and ensure that that is always understood. If not, panic can ensue. Then simple steps. Often we try and do these really elaborate things to bounce back as small businesses. You have a disastrous period, or you have a seasonal business as well, and then that season doesn't go well. Let's take the farming industry, for example, where they don't have rain. How do you bounce back? What are the simple steps? We go back to first principles, first steps, if any of you are engineers, and then create a logical flow and design something that works for your business, something that is going to make sense. And in some essence, what you literally do is taking a step back, reassessing, and then moving forward in a way that is more gathered. There's a strategy behind what you're doing, and that's where this logical sort of flow comes from. And that framework,
And
yeah,
Jared, and if you don't have logic at that point,
if you don't
if for
have logic,
example, you let's say you've gone through a traumatic process in your business, and we've become so used to these disruptions. This kind of disruptive policies coming in every now and again, or we have someone who influences, labor policies, and it really kind of disrupts and sends kind of a shiver down our spine, but also disrupts our business model. And at that point, it's very difficult to kind of see the wood from the trees. What can you recommend while we're building this framework of resilience? How do you stay logic? Or through what? And we're going to talk around your experience of being prepared for the kind of the unexpected. How did you stay focused, and how do you help businesses stay focused and remain logic?
So one thing that I always recommend to any business owner, founder, or leader within a business is you need to have trusted confidants, mentors, whether that be someone who you trust within your family, a professional mentor, professional coach, or a business mentor who you can bounce ideas off, and thoughts and feelings as well. Often what I find is that people tend to shoot from the hip. When this happens, I need to try the next fad, or I need to try what might work, or is working for someone else. And like you just said, Brad, you can't necessarily see the wood for the trees. You're so involved in that particular situation, and you somehow need to take a step back and speak to someone who's looking at it from a third person perspective. They may be vested in your success, but not necessarily vested in the business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. So while we're building this framework, and implementing the clear communication with the rest of the team, in other words, we've got this as a company. We see, for example, this policy coming out from government. Yes, it's going to affect our business. This is how we're going to circumnavigate this. And we create that clear piece of communication that we can put out to our team and potentially to our customers. I think that's a great place to start. And to do that from a sense of logic, we need to sometimes take some time out. And that's something as business owners we don't like to do when we're under fire, is actually do less. But that is the perfect time to take a break. It's a perfect time to hit the golf course. It's a perfect time to take your kids out and go and play in the park for a while, because it allows you as a business owner to settle your mind. Do you kind of agree with that? Or, in your experience, let's say, what are the top 3 tips you can give a business owner when they're too much in their own head and they're trying to build this framework?
So I've lived through a few different examples of this. I'm going to use one example what I did, and hopefully it sheds a little bit more light in terms of how I would approach it. So I exited from a business in 2021. The first thing I did was actually just almost go off the grid for a while. The noise that you get when you're in these situations is sometimes overwhelming, and it's that overwhelm, if there is such a word, that is the worst enemy of anyone in position of leadership. So find a way to move into your own personal quiet space. Find a way that you can understand what your core purpose was. Go back to why you actually went into this particular line of business, why you decided to build this team, and it's all about that. For some people, for me, it was being with my family, and moving, just separating. But you're entrepreneurs as well. You can't completely remove yourself. So what I like to think of, everyone talks about work-life balance, and they get a bit shocked when I say to them, there is no such thing. I talk about work-life rhythm. You have to find a way to, to do the dance, so to speak. If you need to put in a 60, 80-hour week, and because it's absolutely necessary to rebuild after a crisis, absolutely, go ahead and do that. There's nothing wrong if you are at the helm of a business. But you do also need to understand that there are various facets to you as an individual that is not just as the business owner. And so you need to find that balance. And that could be, like Brad said, hit the golf course, go to the Kruger Park, go to the beach, just sit by yourself for half an hour a day, quietly thinking about what it is that you want to do as your next move, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if something traumatic happens in your business and, there's some sort of risk or threat to your business and it's significant. I remember the first time I received a letter of demand as a business owner many, many years ago. It shocked me to the core because it wasn't something I was used to. Kind of later on in businesses, should you ever get that letter again, you kind of feel, so you do also actually get used to the risks and you get kind of used to the threats. But if you don't have a structured response, you tend to respond kind of differently to the same threat in different times in the period of your business ownership. So, you're taking us through building this framework. The first thing was the clear communications, which we spoke through. Can you talk a little bit through kind of the simple steps and the logical flow before we move on to the proactive strategies?
Okay. So, in a sense, the framework is your primary proactive strategy, and the steps that you build is your contingency plan. Okay. How are you going to deal with things? It's far easier to have planned something, to almost have a schedule of how you will react when the proverbial happens. Okay. And it's those steps that you need to follow. And that's what I mean by simple steps. It's, how are we going to, first of all, depending on what the challenges are, could be downturn in the economy. Let's take the example of an NPO at the moment, because they're under huge fire. Many of them sponsored by USAID. USAID is leaving the country. Okay. If you have all your eggs in one basket, it's a surefire way to disaster. It happened with my first business. I learned the hard way. So in your steps, what are your contingencies? That would be the first thing. Who else will be my source of revenue within my organization, whether you're a for-profit, not-for-profit, or anything in between? then how am I going to go about doing that? Simple steps, nothing grandiose. How am I going to find my way back to the level that I was, or something approximating that? But it has to be done in a logical way as well. We can't run around like headless chickens. Now, because back to the example, my funding has gone from a USAID. Am I going to suddenly try and find every international funder that I can, or do I go to where I know that I am going to have success? Logic would say, I want to go where, how we built this organization. So with now talking about for-profit, you have so many people here today who have built their businesses in a very precise sort of way. Maybe not always, but they've built it, and you can go back and reassess. What did I do that worked? What did I do that didn't work? Okay, now build the process without those hiccups, because in hindsight is 2020, and that literally becomes your framework. Do I go back to my network that has worked for me, the people who have supported me, who bought from me, who supplied? Do I talk to those people who are my suppliers, and how do I negotiate terms with them so that I assume? Well, I'm just assuming what the challenge would be, because there's so many things that could happen. And I think we also need to understand one more thing, is that we can't be prepared for absolutely everything. So the framework
we spoke about that.
It needs to be flexible enough that you can shift your plan.
I also find that one of the things that we can do, Jared, and we've spoken about this before in the other talks we did and other public speaking opportunities we've been given with corporates, around, to eliminate or try and reduce the amount of risk that you carry as a business, and to kind of safeguard yourself, make yourself less vulnerable to these kind of rapid changes that are coming, not only locally, but globally, is to also just look at how you deliver your services and how you engage with the industry you're playing in, because there's a lot of answers in that for you as well. And if you have a business model that's pretty fluid and dynamic, it could help you survive whatever comes your way. It's the concept of, in a storm, sometimes it's the smaller ship that is able to navigate the storm at sea better than a bigger cargo ship, because it has flexibility and it has the ability to ride through, the waves that are coming, or the different sets that come through. So I think it's also a great way, when you're building this kind of flow chart, when you're building this framework of resilience, is to constantly do it. Don't just do it once a year. Don't do it when something actually happens. Sit down every 3 months and go, okay, well, what's coming up on the horizon? What potential threat is there for us? And how would we navigate it if it came through? And that preparedness, I've personally found, Jared, I don't know about you, you don't find that regularly in businesses nowadays.
A lot of businesses that I've been working with seem to be so caught up in the operations and supplying services or products and making sure that the delivery is great, that and with some of them, strategy is something that should be done every 3 to 5 years and finished, but it's a living breathing sort of entity, if you want to call it that. So, to your point, we should regularly be able to assess the environment. Okay, it's one of the core factors of any strategic plan. Used to be called PESTEL. Some people have added a few different areas. But what we want to do is we want to look at the economy, we want to look at technology, we want to look at the political and economic environment. Okay. But at the same time, if you take a look at really successful businesses that are able to weather these storms, they don't just have one constant revenue stream. There's multiple streams of revenue that, so if one fails, you have your fail safe in place. And then, well, the third point over here, and I'm not just saying this because that's where I've invested pretty much the last 20 years of my life, but training and coaching is really, really important, and not specifically for the upper echelons. I think coaching for your leaders, someone who is an accountability partner to the leaders in your organization, I think absolutely crucial. And to some extent, a coach and a mentor. Now, they have a very different sort of role. A coach is someone who walks the path with you and guides you. The mentor is someone who's been there, done that, and will almost be that radar for you as well.
Sounding board.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's crucial, but the type of
the
training...
invest in training. So Jared, the invest in training for me is absolutely vital. We sat with a client this week, and every second Friday of the month, they have time that they've allocated for their team to do training. And it's not just technical training, it's training that kind of encompasses the entire job spec and the journey as a company. One of them they did is, personal LinkedIn training to see that, who's active on LinkedIn. How can this help you as an individual, as a professional, but also showcase us as a better company, as a more inclusive company, as a company that prides itself on very strong teamwork. So training doesn't have to be something you pay for. It actually can be something you can do internally, but just to upskill yourselves, have a discussion around a specific item where you feel is lacking. So for me, this point is really, really vital and a great way to reduce your risk, because if you ever train at the gym during the day, they do these fire training, and they set the alarm off and they push everybody out the gym and they do the whole scenario as if there was a fire. And that's vital, because if there's a fire one day, you know what to do. But a lot of businesses tend to forget about that and focus, like you mentioned, on kind of the production side.
Yeah. So the one other thing I want to add to that, because it doesn't need to cost an arm and a leg, it doesn't actually need to cost anything in most cases. But the other thing, the misconception about training is that it's a day out of the office, 2 days out of the office. It doesn't have to be. So the way that agile businesses are learning now is micro learning. So it could be 5-10 minute quick video from some amazing sources that, even TED Talks. And it could also be one thing that we do for some of our clients. We call it focus workshops or flash learning, where during a lunch period, or before work starts, or for half an hour after work is finished, if they finish a little bit early, if you have set hours, we talk about a particular topic that is very pertinent to that business, and it doesn't have to be a technical topic. In fact, a lot of the learning that has the greatest value across all verticals within a business is the human learning. How do I respond? How do I handle conflict? How do I handle stress and burnout? How do I engage better within myself and with others? So that sort of learning is crucial. Now, you don't have to come to a training session where you have to pay thousands. There's free learning on LinkedIn. There's free learning on YouTube. There are really good programs if you're just willing to look a little bit harder for them. And
I kind of feel like it's kind of like having a medical aid. It's when you have this framework of how do we assess a threat, and how do we circumnavigate that threat, or how do we work through the solution, or how are we going to deal with that threat that's going to happen to our business, or that risk that our business stands from. If you have a policy written and put into place where you've assessed to your best ability as a small business owner the potential risks and threats out there, it actually puts your mind at ease, because when you go back and look into that file or that document, etc., and read through it and read what you've put down as a solution, it also brings you back into the space of logic, because it kind of strips away that emotional fear and pulls you back into a space of, okay, I'm in control of this. I know what's going on. I know how to solve that. So that preparedness is absolutely essential, Jared. And thinking about technology, I mean, AI, is it a good thing to bring this in as part of your framework development?
So what I would say is first understand what outcomes you actually want to achieve. Okay. Once you understand that, then see what the simplest and best solution is for you. So in some cases, where if time is your challenge, okay, you can then bring in various technology solutions, whether they be AI or not, automation of certain aspects. What I do try and suggest to all my clients and people who aren't my clients as well is focus where you are best. Focus where your expertise lies. If you're large enough to outsource something, you outsource it. But if you are a smaller business, as the case with the vast majority of businesses in this country, you can't always afford that. So how can technology and test the technologies out there? Don't just say, oh, well, this business next to me is doing X, Y, and Z, so I must do it. It may not work for you.
Yeah.
You're looking at things like culture. You're looking at your the type of business you are, and your whole business model may not actually be suited by that technology. So AI can work very well in some businesses. Things like chatbots for customer service works very well, and in other cases, you still need that human touch, okay, or a hybrid version of it. I would say give yourself the time to test what actually does work within your business, and then work with that. But what I would caution anybody from doing is trying absolutely everything. You become like the kid in the candy store, and you try every possible sweet, and you never really get to your favorite, the one that's going to give you the best value, the one that's going to continue to work for you. And just to come back to your analogy, which I think is a really great one about medical aids, not everyone needs an executive plan with discovery. Sometimes it's just the hospital plan that you need. And in times
that's true.
In times that are difficult for small businesses now, for businesses in South Africa in general, you need to find what works, what is as cost effective as possible, but is giving you real bang for your buck. So technology is not always the answer, but it is an important aspect to mitigate for these challenges.
So as we move along, this is
been alluding to this all the time.
Yeah, we are. But for me, just jumping ahead to financial challenges, and I think this is a huge one, because financial challenges, if you own a business or you're within this SMME space, even if you're working in a small business, you will be super aware of financial challenges, but some way or the other, you will, you'll get face to face with it. So you've highlighted three kind of, I would say, support, or three kind of tips or tools on how to just navigate financial challenges. And before we go on to those three, how do you prevent, we know cash flow is a major, major issue, do you start your business up with a bank balance that can navigate any sort of risk? Or is it something that happens over time? So as a small business, you slowly but surely save a little bit until you get to a point where you have these savings. From your perspective, Jared, I mean, a lot of businesses start with zero cash.
Mhm.
Like, is it something you can do over time? Can you get better and better at managing your financial risks over time?
So it's a really great question. And my take on it is I try and get businesses where possible to avoid taking massive business loans or to solely look for funding. If you can bootstrap, what it does is it kind of teaches you the value of what you are actually providing. That's the first thing.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
you know
okay.
that if you manage to secure X amount, and you can become more disciplined. It's almost like teaching a child how to save. A portion of what you've
Mm.
earned, keep that as much as you can in a contingency fund or for that rainy day.
Mm.
It may not
Mm.
get you through the whole period, but it kind of gives you that buffer. And
Mm.
there are situations where you absolutely need to go for funding. If you're in a manufacturing
Mm.
business, you can't just start off with completely bootstrapping that unless you've saved already for yourself. So
Yeah, you need the cash up front. Yeah.
yeah, so that is the challenge, but do it wisely. Do it in a way that you know that
Mm.
any repayments on an equity loan or that venture
Mm.
capital, if you decide to go that sort of route, what does that actually mean to the bottom line of your business from an operational perspective? Because ultimately, it's operations that are affected when we hit
Yeah.
that torrid period, and not a lot of businesses have that contingency fund because we've been
No,
years.
yeah, yeah. Look, sorry, man, from experience, and working with a lot of small businesses, and corporates, even in the corporate space, a lot of that money is channeled, a lot of excess money that comes in whenever there's such a thing. You have a
Yes,
great month, you have a little bit more money in the bank, or your cash flow has grown, your turnover is growing. So you kind of start getting, used to having that kind of average bank balance sitting in your account every month. One of the first things we tend to do is go out and get a new vehicle, or, we jazz up our offices, or we don't really invest it in things that can help minimize our risk. And I think
yes,
that is quite important. So one of the things we were exploring is that should a small business have an investment side to it? Should a small business, when it is able, invest in something that can bring residual income? So the idea is that you have your small business. When you start to, generate cash and you start to have enough, you purchase, for example, a small little investment property that brings you in money every month. And that helps you, once that property is paid, of course, will help you navigate the target that you have to reach every month. But up and above that, and the contingency fund, negotiating the terms, optimizing cash flow, I think the guys have already read the slide.
yeah.
What do you agree with the concept that we should be investors and look for that residual income to try and minimize risk?
If you have got to the point where you are um, turning a steady profit, doesn't matter how large or how small that is. If you can invest and diversify, now I'm no financial advisor, and I want to just be clear about that. But if you are
Yeah,
able
no.
to diversify um, your revenue streams, and that can be in part via an investment type. So invest in owning your own business premises if you can, rather than renting or going to a place like a Regis or one of these work sharing areas. On the other, but it has to be at the right stage within your business as well. So not everyone can do that. I think what's most important is in the earlier stages within a business. I don't think that's necessarily feasible. I think you're about building the business. So businesses are really about stages. Are you at the absolute startup stage? Are you in a growth stage? And it's during that growth period where you started stabilizing with a consistent income or revenue, into the business. You have good, solid staff, that you have sufficient staff. You're not expecting on taking on any more costs or expenses. Then start looking at how you can invest any additional capital that you may have. And that then allows you to maintain your cash flows. But it's not something I would.
Yeah, I think it's now. Yeah. Look, I think it's just that I think a lot of small business owners, we all fall in this trap, because you work as hard and you put a lot of hours in. You tend to use the business funds to fund your personal lifestyle as a business owner, and that is a huge risk. You're actually creating a risk for your business, and a threat at the same time, I guess, by not just having a set salary that you earn, and that should be enough for you to draw down on, but it should also be enough that it doesn't sink the business or put the business in jeopardy from a cash flow perspective. But we tend to bleed the business for personal benefit, where it's renovations to our home or buying a car, putting our kids in school, private school, etc. But all of those things contribute to your risk. So I think when you're doing this framework, have a look as a business owner, what is actually an internal threat and what is an external threat, and actually be aware of it and be honest about it. And if you're still prepared to take the risk, then go for it. But know it's there and know that it is a threat every time that you do it. So we're moving along from the cash. We've got 10 minutes left of the session, and I want to talk through your journey. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you in this session. So you had something really unexpected happen to you, Jared. And I want to know, first of all, it's good to hear that you're good, you're healthy. So blessings for that. But how did you navigate that? How did you keep your business open, bro?
So I was a lone wolf for a while, and very fortunately I partnered with someone else. So partnership is always crucial. Never try and be that lost fir tree in the depleted forest. And in March of last year, I was diagnosed with cancer. And that in itself is a massive shock, because literally I'm a business consultant, I'm a coach, and one of the things that I would say is try and find ways that you're not selling your time. I started focusing on not selling my time, but rather selling the service on a. It's not always a retainer basis, but you need your clients to understand that I would rather have a regular, steady income than have an amazing month and then all of a sudden you get ill, and for the next month or two you have zero income. So I think that first point, don't sell your time, but working on your own mindset is, and it sounds completely ridiculous, but if you can work on your own mindset, what happened with me was, and I didn't even realize this, but I was going for things like radiation and chemotherapy does actually affect your mental capacity at times. I was very fortunate, and because of the techniques and work that I use with my own clients, not patients, I use them on myself. So I didn't let it bother me as much as it normally would. But I can tell you in hindsight, I wasn't operating at the same level. So having a partner who was able to be that sounding board when I was thinking about things in a muddle was phenomenal. Having a support system both within and without your business as well. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a financial support system. That is, you need your raving fans, people who are going to cheer you on, because you are going to have bad days. And in my case, it was a life-threatening illness, which thank God I've beaten. But it could very well be, I don't know, a change in the economic climate. It could be a change in technology that suddenly blows your business out of the water. And how do you embrace innovation with that? So I like using examples of businesses that I've worked with. In one particular business, they're very well known in the water collection side of things. And during COVID, they changed their entire business model and actually became 40% more profitable, because what they did was they make big plastic containers for water. What they did was they made, they changed their molds. They had arches going into shops when we were allowed to go in, and they actually allowed sanitizer to be sprayed through them. It was
I remember. Yeah.
Absolutely snapped up. They were innovative. They identified an opportunity. They looked at their model. I think their model was slightly altered, but they used the partnerships that they already had with various organizations as well. And it's those exact same 4 steps that I used within my own journey to pretty much keep my business going. So
did you ever see it as a risk, your health diminishing and going through that challenge? Before it happened, did you ever factor it in?
Oh, before? No, I thought I was Superman. I've been incredibly healthy before.
So and so that's what we tend to do. I find as I get older, I tend to, I think you can agree, you're younger than me anyway, but you can agree that, you start to face the reality that you're getting older, and that, there are certain things that you can and cannot do anymore. And you stay positive, and as a business owner, you kind of forced to stay young and think young. That's all good and well, but there are things that start to affect the way you do your job and the way you run your business. So I think when we do this framework, if we can try and think of all the risks that we have coming our way, and not just the risks we're having today, but what's happening in the next 5 years. And I know that's kind of impossible to factor in, but that is where your mentor comes in. That's where your business coach comes in, the person that you're talking to about your business, who's been through it, that is slightly older, that can then say to you, but have you considered this? Or in order to navigate the fact that you're getting older and you want more time with your kids or whatever, have you tried considering doing this? And then you can put that in your framework. Yeah. But Jared, so you survived it. You had a great partner. I know your partner, you've got a fantastic partner. You guys have got a great business model. What would you have done differently to prepare for that? Would you have taken out a life policy for the guys listening in today, for the members of SAEFA? What could they do to prevent that particular thing from happening and affecting their business? That's what I'm trying to say, because you can't prevent it, but how can you limit the effect that it has on your business?
So I would rather first look at, let's steer away from like the life policy sort of thing, but a buy and sell agreement within your organization, I think, is absolutely crucial if you have a partner. That's someone who's grown the vision of your business, and your spouse, who would naturally become the owner of your shares, or may not have that same vision. So it's very important to have a sell agreement. One thing that I did, only afterwards, but I feel to an extent is really important, is to have much more solid relationships with the people who are buying from you. What I mean by that is they become your supporters. They become more understanding if your service is going to falter. Now, I've always built strong relationships with all of my clients, and they predominantly are corporate or mid-sized businesses, actually, small to medium-sized businesses. It's not the individual. So when that happens and you can't deliver, to an extent, they will be able to give you a little bit more leeway. But it's crucial to have those contingencies in place, just in case it's, if your production line or your service can't be delivered, what is that alternative that I can turn to? And even if I'm earning a portion of the revenue that will come from that, but I'm
At least it's something,
still bringing in that revenue as well. It may mean that we need to sell more, but ultimately what we're doing is we're creating a broader sort of macroeconomy, if you will.
Awesome.
So in my case,
perfect. Yeah. Hectic. But Jared, we've known each other for quite a while. I kind of really admire how you pushed through. You shared the journey with us as a group, and it's been absolutely incredible. We are at 3 o'clock, so I think we can hand it back to Gordon. We don't want to keep everyone waiting or longer than what we should. But before we go, we can just perhaps run through the key takeaways and action steps. Jared, do you want to just quickly go through the 4 of them?
Sure. So I think very important, continually assess your business at every step. When you feel that you're becoming a little bit complacent, do the reassess immediately, because complacency is probably the worst place we can be. Invest in resilience. So by that I mean build your mental toughness. Don't only invest in the business from a CapEx perspective. How are you going to find people who are able to do what you do, and then give yourself time off as well? Spend time building yourself and looking at the various facets of your life, not just the business. I know that is really, really tough for entrepreneurs. And then adaptability also comes with innovation. So you need to be ready for change at just about any point in time, and you need to be responsive more so than probably, I would say, any generation that's come before us, because things are happening so quickly. Your business can be the toast of the town one moment and completely obsolete within a month. So being able to keep ahead of your competition. And finally is, and it's a crucial aspect that I've spoken to Tamara, my partner, about as well, is remain humble. And by remaining humble, when you need that support in whatever form, you are able to seek it, and you're able to ask for it, and it doesn't come across as a weakness within your business, but it actually becomes part of your business model. So connect with your network, keep up with your networks. Doesn't matter if your business is, an accountant and or a manufacturing business or anything else. Often we think that, I only need a network if I'm in a really people-centric type role, sales, marketing, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Thank you so much, Jared, for your time. I think we do have a question from Dani. Gordon, do you want to maybe handle that, or can I just do that quick before we close? I know we're over time, but Gordon, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read it out really quick.
Brad, go for it, Jared, please. Thank you.
Sorry, man. Yeah, so it's from Donnie. Hey, Donnie, I hope you're doing well, bud. Donnie was asking, is there a stage where investing in growth and CapEx has more risk than diversifying into investments into synergy services, startups? I don't know if that question makes sense. Jared?
I'm just looking at it because there's something that kind of throws me in the question, because you're investing in growth to sustain growth. I'm not sure if it meant to come through that way. Now,
yeah,
the idea is to sustain your growth, but do you want to? Is your capital expense actually going to make a difference and help sustain that growth? Is really what's so key. Normally, well, from what I've seen, and I've only been around for about 21, 22 years. So I mean, they're far more experienced people than me.
Spring chicken.
Yeah, I like to think so. But putting it into your operational expenses might at times be better. But I would say if you want to put it into a CapEx, a capital expense, a property or machinery or something along those lines, make sure that you're at a period within your business where it has grown substantially and is starting to plateau. So what I mean is you have the startup phase, then you have rapid growth, or hopefully rapid growth, even if it's steady growth, but at some point you will start plateauing as well. And this is where a lot of your larger businesses start looking at things like mergers and acquisitions. For a smaller business, that could mean an additional machine in your production line. It could mean that property that you were talking about that keeps that raises the revenue on a consistent basis, but it has to be something that you really think about. So it would be that mid stage of growth where you're just coming through a growth spurt and plateauing. I don't know if that answers Donnie's question.
Yeah, I think Donnie's also a little bit concerned around fast growing. Yeah, but I think it covers everything. We are over time. We don't want to keep everyone in the room. We appreciate your time. So Emily, Timbekile, Karine, everybody else, we're really grateful for your attendance. Thank you very much, guys. If you found the session useful, please engage on LinkedIn with us. Pop a comment in the question, give us a reaction. It's really nice to get your kind of engagement and feedback. I think the way the session was set up was structures for you guys not to be able to comment. So we'll try and change it for the next round, because we really enjoy you guys coming in and just chatting and giving us your feedback, because you are business owners and we would love to hear from you. But Jared, again, thank you very much. And Gordon, we hand it back to you, bud.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Brad. Thanks very much, Jared. Really, really great session this afternoon. Lots of food for thought. It's so easy just to get caught up in the putting out fires role of being an entrepreneur and a senior at a company. So definitely great food for thought, and thanks very much for your time. Really greatly appreciate you spending your time with us this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me. Sorry about the technical glitch in the beginning again.
No problem. We've all been there. All right. Perfect. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks very much for your attention. And please leave the comments and reach out to us, as Brad said, on LinkedIn. And let's carry on the conversation from there. Thanks very much for everybody's time this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So, Jared, we tend to just wait for everyone to exit, and then we just, chat a little bit. So how are you doing, Boetie?
I'm good. It's the only injury that I've had lately.
That's great.
With my son.
Oh, that's so awesome, man.
Yeah, it just shows my age.
Thank you very much, Bud. We will probably put out 1 or 2 posts regarding the session we had, because it is for the members, it's exclusive for members. So post event, we will, put some stuff up on LinkedIn. If you can engage, that'll be really great. And I think Nicole will, just tag you in on some of the conversations, and that will really help. And then I think that Nicole's got your details, and she'll share it with the members there in case anybody wants to chat to you directly.
Okay, fantastic. And if they need to ask me any additional questions, I'm also available.
Okay, perfect, Bud. But I think I'm going to end the event. I think I'm able to end the event, and I'm going to do that. And we'll chat soon, buddy. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, Gordon.
Bye.
Bye.